They don't know where it came from.
Ever since this jet engine fiasco, I honestly don't know.
Donnie Darko, perhaps with your recent brush with mass destruction, you can give us your opinion.
They say it right when they flood the house and they tear it to shreds, that, like, destruction is a form of creation.
You even know who Graham Greene is.
So the fact that they burn the money is ironic. They just want to see what happens when they tear the world apart. They want to change things.
Which at a whopping 13 pages would have kept you up all night. You would know that the children find a great deal of money in the mattress, but they burn it.
You all right, son? So, let's stay off the links at night, okay?
But I want to be a president of the United States who makes sure that we never again do business with a drug-running Panamanian dictator.
Do you believe in time travel?
Who are you talking to?
And finally, I looked in the mirror. Not just in the mirror.
I urge you to go home and look in the mirror and pray that your son doesn't succumb to the path of fear.
I looked through the mirror. In that image, I saw my ego reflection.
What did Frank say?
He said to follow him.
Follow him. Where?
Into the future. A storm is coming, Frank says. A storm that will swallow the children. And I will deliver them from the kingdom of pain. And then he said that the world was coming to an end.
Do you think the world is coming to an end?
I will deliver the children back to their doorsteps. I'll send the monsters back to the underground. I'll send them back to a place where no one else can see them.
Donald Darko. Donald Darko.
Do you know anything about time travel?
Einstein was a bridge, which is theoretically a wormhole in space controlled by man.
It's called the philosophy of time travel.
According to Hawking, a wormhole may be able to provide a shortcut for jumping between two distant regions of space-time.
to travel back in time, you have to have a big spaceship or something that can travel faster than the speed of light.
Theoretically.
And be able to find one of these wormholes.
The basic principles of time travel are there. You've got your vessel and your portal, and your vessel can be just about anything, most likely a spacecraft.
He asked me if I knew about time travel, and she wrote a book about it, so it can't be like a coincidence, right? Like a DeLorean.
Metalcraft of any kind.
You know, I love that movie, the way they shot it. It's so, like futuristic, you know? Philosophy of time travel.
Up and left the church, she wrote this book. She started teaching science right here at Middlesex. Well, each vessel travels along a vector through space-time along its center of gravity.
Like a spear.
Like a spear. Like a spear.
I beg your pardon?
Like a spear that comes out of your chest. Like a spear that comes out of your chest.
You guys want anything?
By the way, this week on a special Who's the Boss, starring Tony Danza and Judith Light, Samantha borrows Tony's van and gets caught without a license.
What are we gonna invent?
And what if you could go back in time and take all those hours of pain and darkness and replace them with something better?
Could these portals just appear anywhere, anytime?
I think that's highly unlikely. No, I think what you're talking about is an act of God.
Well, if God controls time, then all time's pre-decided. Like every living thing follows along set path. And if you could see your path or channel, then you could see into the future, right? Right? Like, that's a form of time travel.
If we were able to see our destinies manifest themselves visually, then we would be given a choice to betray our chosen destinies. mere fact that this choice exists would make all preformed destiny come to an end.
Not if you travel within God's channel.
It gives me no pleasure to deny you the right to read one of the great writers of the 20th century.
Have you ever seen a portal?
Do you now believe in God?
I have the power to build a time machine.
I have the power to build a time machine.
How is that possible? How is time travel possible, Donnie?
Time's up, Frank said.
So, there you have it. Donnie Darko is Donald Trump. A film about a boy, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, who gets possessed by an evil rabbit with demonic superpowers. The rabbit tells Darko that the world will end in 28 days. Except that the exact time that he gives adds up to the number 88. And of course we saw the number 88 surrounding the two towers. Every year 88 xenon lights shine. Why? Because the two towers were two 8-sided cylinders. Now first, we will examine the obvious Blind 11 foreshadowing. You see, the film released first at Sundance Film Festival on Blind 11, but in reverse. January 19th, 2001, 9 months before it happened. They mention mass destruction, they talk about order out of chaos, and a plane even crashes into Darko's room. The engines, anyway. So, the evil rabbit tells Donald that he was able to perform these miracles via time travel. And Darko even mentions Back to the Future. So now this is fitting in to the Biff Trump Back to the Future storyline. you might consider Donnie Darko a twin film of Back to the Future. Now here's where things get weird, because Hawking was mentioned. Hawking was on Little St. James Island with Eggstein. Eggstein was a mathematician, and he was very interested in investing lots of money into physics and scientists. What is this really all about? So later in the film, Donald is given a book on time travel, and he begins to read it. And then at 55 minutes into the film, we get our confirmation that in fact, Donnie Darko is Donald Trump. Look at his shirt. It says Triumph. And repeatedly in the film, people in his life call him Donald. 55 minutes into the film, and Trump was 55 years old when this released in 2001. And then at this point in the decode, Pandora's box really opened, because then I looked through to find this Triumph motorcycle. And this was all about Benjamin Button as well, another time travel film in which Brad Pitt grows younger instead of older. Now, Donald then has his first time travel experience after focusing in on the number 17 on the back of a quarterback, and that is the player from the Washington Redskins. And of course, it's 1988. So the player was 33 years old in that moment when he threw that football. And he was born 33 days before Blind 11. You can't make this up, you guys. Number 17, what does that stand for? Q. Williams was born in 55, Trump's age when this was released. And you saw all the 17s in the score. He either won at 17 points or lost by 17 points. Now, according to the timeline in the film, this Redskins losing game was played somewhere around October 2nd, 1988. Even though the film said that it was already well past October 10th. But the reason why we know this had to be around the beginning of October is because they mention a Who's the Boss episode about a van, and I looked that up, and that aired on October 18th. So, tracking back the Redskins' last loss, we're looking at October 2nd. And here's the game, and you notice all of the 17s and 33s. So what's really happening here? Well, that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of. And then, of course, Darko and his friends keep hearing airplanes all throughout the film. And I believe that the number 28 is 28 days and is really a countdown to the 28 years that the tower stood. From April 4th, 1973 to Blind 11, 2001 was 28 years. And that's why Frank, the rabbit in the film, it was 28 years old when this aired. And I believe this film was a cryptic warning that literally nobody decoded until this moment in history. And toward the end of the film, the Bunny Man is unmasked. And the Bunny Man, what I found out, was an urban legend in Virginia about a killer bunny who appears during Samhain, the October Festival of Darkness. And this company called Bad Wolf Brew actually commemorated the Bunny Man archetype legend with this brew, this beer. And on it you see the bunny, of course, and you see a child with a red balloon. We've been talking a lot about the red balloons, haven't we? The child is standing outside of a bridge where this supposed Bunny Man was sighted, going all the way back to the 1970s. And now you know why the film opened with Darko's mom reading Stephen King's It. Now, there's also a clown that appears as well. It's the guy who basically runs over his girlfriend. Lots of clown references. So back to this rabbit. Who is this rabbit? Well, it's played by the man named James Duvall, who was 28 during the first release. Guess when he was born? The eve of Blind 11. Now, the crazy thing is that in the movie, a book called The Destructors is censored from the classroom. And the book is about a boy named T, you know, like Trump, who destroys a house full of money from the inside out. Then the facade. He burns the house down and burns the money. And now when we look at everything that we just talked about, how Donnie Darko is really Donald Trump, this is all starting to make sense, who T really is. Because at the end of the film, Donnie Darko burns down a man's house from the inside out. Now, what's interesting is the towers were known by their unique construction from the outside in. The facade is what held the whole thing together, and it was called a curtain. Now, you will notice that the professor is always depicted next to a Van de Graaff generator or a Tesla tower. This is a clue. So, Donnie sneaks out of the movie theater. He burns down the guy's house, who he calls the Antichrist. And after the fire's put out, they discover CP in his basement. And as Darko tries to avoid the end of the world, he ends up playing out the very scenario that would end his girlfriend's life. Wrong place at the wrong time. And who's driving? The rabbit, Frank, who he saw during the entire movie, who was speaking to him about time travel. Now, we know that Trump is the Gemini man. He is the Janus, the two faces. And there are many man in the mirror references in Donnie Darko. Now, what is this about? Well, the man in the mirror is the portal to evil. So Donnie Darko is talking to his professor about the vehicle that would be used for time travel. And he describes it as a spear coming out through your chest. Now this is interesting because if you look at Donald Trump's coat of arms, it's got a spear coming up through a square. Well, we all know what the square is. That's our prison body locked into a cube instead of an unfolded cross. And so this becomes the mechanism for time travel, the spear coming out of the chest. Now this I was not expecting to find. The FF scalar vector formula underneath the chalkboard, just like in iPad Go 2. There it is right there in Donnie Darko's classroom, as his teacher is telling the story about the book, about burning the building from the inside out, which is exactly what happened on Blind 11. So after taking into consideration all of the other synchronicities and all of the other films dealing with time travel surrounding the Blind 11 event, what I believe it really was a sacrificial portal time machine. I don't know exactly how it works, but I believe that through the mass sacrifice, something was opened. The bottomless pit, maybe? I don't know. Darko then shoots him in the eye, completing the circle. A portal then opens, and it almost seems as though time resets, and Donnie is killed in his bed as the jet engine falls through his ceiling. Instead of the first scenario where it fell through his ceiling but he wasn't in his bed, he was out somewhere else at the beginning of the time loop. And that's where the film ends. A time reset via human sacrifice. Unbelievable. So now we have more clues. Next, we'll be looking at 40 Wall Street, Trump's copper top building. And yes, there were films filmed in that building that we'll be taking a look at and decoding. Take care and be safe, you guys.